But here's our top story. Build domain expertise. Talk less, get the job done. That was the Prime Minister's message to first-time MPs. The same Prime Minister who redefined communications in the election campaign by using even hologram technology to spread his message.
A former army chief and a retired home secretary, fellow classmates at a two-day workshop for BJP's 170 first-time MPs. Prime Minister Modi's message to his colleagues: ruling party MPs need to be extra cautious not to promote nepotism. He also stressed on the need for the MPs to specialize and have expertise. He said, "Our transition from opposition to the treasury is not limited to moving a few feet to the other side. This is a significant transition and we must try to appreciate the meaning of this."
उन्होंने इस बात का जिक्र किया कि मुझे भी 2 दिन यहाँ रहना चाहिए था. फर्स्ट टाइम MP हूँ मैं.
Sources say Modi's mantra to fellow MPs also included not to speak out of turn in the media. Focus instead on achar, vichar, vyavhar. MPs should be brand ambassadors of the government in their constituencies. MPs should also prepare a roadmap for their constituencies. They should list out the problems and offer solutions. Congress Mukt Bharat campaign worked in the centre. MPs now need to repeat that in their states.
How to maintain standards in public life, how to take the message of good work of the government to the people.
Over the next 2 days, newly elected BJP MPs will deliberate upon a host of issues. But perhaps the big political goal from such a meet would be, how does the BJP extend its massive Lok Sabha win to crucial assembly elections in states like Maharashtra and Haryana later this year? With camera person Vijay Singh Patwal, Sandeep Phukan, NDTV.
Well, don't speak out of turn. Is silence golden for the NDA, not for the UPA? Joining us to debate this, Pinky Anand, spokesperson of the BJP, Sanjay Jha, spokesperson of the Congress, and senior editor Siddharth Bhatia. Pinky, let me come to you first. Don't speak out of turn in the media is what Prime Minister Modi now says. Why is this necessarily the strategy that he wants to follow? The same Prime Minister who'd used every opportunity to outline his beliefs and those of his party in the election campaign. All of a sudden, he stopped speaking.
Vishnu, I think the answer is self-evident. When you are in politics and you are in the election mode, you have to reach out to a large cross-section of people and get through to them your particular philosophy. But when you are in the government and you are running the government as the majority party in the present case, then you change your role to that of a statesman. So then the accountability of performance comes on your head. At the time of running for elections, you are not at the stage of performance. Here you are at the stage of performance. You have been elected by the people, you have to deliver. So for delivery, what is required definitely is efficiency and in the performance, and for that purpose maybe more work and less talk is the motto of the day.
No, but Pinky, outrage over the rail fare hike, Prime Minister has not spoken. The Badayu rape, he reacted 2 weeks later in Parliament. No reaction from the Prime Minister in terms of a statement other than tweets and things like that. On the Iraq crisis, Nihal Chand, no real explanation from the Prime Minister. So where's the message?
First of all, Vishnu, if you take no, the question is if you are asking for a response only from the Prime Minister, I think that might not be the most appropriate situation to be contemplating. We cannot expect that at every stage it is necessarily emanating from Mr. Modi. When the BJP itself or the government responds, and the government has, for example, in the Badayon case, the rape case, Mr. Rajnath Singh, the Home Minister, and no less than the Home Minister, had responded very actively, and there were interviews all over, whether it's the press or the electronic medium. So the question of no response is not there. At times you may not have Mr. Modi personally responding, but then the Prime Minister doesn't necessarily respond to each and every situation as long as there's a response from the government and a responsible response from a senior person.
But Pinky, I think these are not any issues. These aren't any issues, and I take your point
I'm not
about
saying any issues.
I take your point about the Prime Minister not necessarily being the best person to respond to each and everything. But Ravi Shankar Prasad, Law Minister, the allegations of Gopal Subramaniam, for example, made on this channel, no comments. It's a sensitive matter. Smriti Irani on this entire Delhi University standoff, persistent attempts on me to speak on a constitutional issue is not proper. Everybody is speaking about this. Her view is critical on this.
No,
the HRD minister of the country.
No. Again, when you're talking about, for example, on Gopal Subramaniam issue, I mean, most of us as spokesperson for the party have represented the party actively, including on your channels.
Yes,
so there is no
absolutely.
No response.
And on my show, why not the law minister?
Yes. No, the question is, again, this targeting of saying X or Y should be speaking in particular. I must say the law ministry has acted as it deems fit. The party on its behalf and the government on its behalf has put forward the various spokesperson to speak on its behalf. I don't think you need to identify identities and to say only if Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad speaks is the same deemed to be correct. I mean, the point is very clear. We are authorized to speak on behalf of the party and we have spoken.
Okay. Sanjay Jha, how do you respond to this? That look, I mean, spokespeople like Pinky are appearing, every issue is being addressed. Is it necessarily fair to say that Prime Minister Modi doesn't speak, he's changed his avatar, and that the ministers don't speak?
Vishnu, just do a quick rewind and you will get your answers. I remember we gave the same response. Our minister spoke, the spokesperson spoke, but you remember the BJP stalling parliament and on multiple issues saying we want to hear the Prime Minister make a comment. So, obviously these are, double standards and very brazen hypocrisy at play. With due respects to Pinky, I mean, it's their internal strategy how they want to communicate with the larger universe. But the truth is she's saying that what we say during the time of the elections, is reaching out to the people. But frankly, since they have got a sizable mandate, it actually increases your responsibility. And to that extent, one should reach out even more. As somebody, as somebody who represents a political party. Pinky, just let me finish, please. Pinky, just let me finish.
But
my point is that I can tell you,
and that is why we are taking that with a sense of responsibility.
Well, the point I was making, Vishnu, at a more larger level was that as a political party and as a government, I think we paid a huge political cost for not being more aggressive in our communication. I think that's one of the reasons why the UPA frankly lost at the hustings. The critical point though, which I think this government is facing, is that they have been in such a vitriolic electoral rhetoric state for such a long time that the sudden kind of change in role to one of very, very serious responsibility is something that they're not really prepared for. I mean, in a government you face headwinds. The headwinds can be the protests.
Sanjay, give us a break. I don't think you're talking about a position of somebody not being prepared for it.
Vishnu, I leave it to you if you want me to talk.
Sanjay, just to respond to you, when Prime Minister Modi became Prime Minister and his first speech that was delivered, one of the compliments that was given to Mr. Modi was the fact that from a political speech and a political statement, it had changed to that of a statesman. So I do think you need to understand the transition. The question is not one of being prepared or not prepared. The question is one of change the situation where you need to answer more by performance than by speaking. And I think that's what you need to understand.
Particularly a statesman who has defined himself as being an extraordinary speaker.
Well, I'm surprised how Vishnu, one is using words like a statesman so casually. I think there's a distinction between a politician, an administrator, even a prime minister and a statesman. Let's not try and be very casual about terms like that. I think the point that one needs to understand is that maybe this government is feeling a bit of a foot in the mouth syndrome effect at the moment, whether it's Article 370, some of the instances that you mentioned.
I think, Sanjay, it's a laughable statement.
I think there may be multiple cases where they have been forced to backtrack and look pretty flushed in the face. Now, but it's their internal problem. Pinky, listen, we are talking here, this is an academic discussion. This is not something very hot.
No, again, in the academic discussion, I think, Sanjay, the point which is being made
I'm just saying it is something that we have done for 10 years, and it is a tough job. I understand. I empathize with you. But the
Pinky, one
truth is you will have to communicate to the larger
Pinky, 1 second. Let Sanjay finish his sentence. I'll come to you. But go ahead, Sanjay, finish the point you're making.
Yeah, I think, Vishnu, that's a point I'm making. I mean, at one point you have the BJP, apparently, I'm not privy, I was not a fly on the wall in what happened in their training room today. But at one point they're saying they don't talk too much to the media, but here you're finding that we are not having a very, very equal, shall we say, a very balanced debate. The point I want to make here is it is tough to run a government because everything you say will be and ought to be taken with great gravity. And I think the job of the media, Pinky, is to ask you questions.
Okay.
The media has to fight for the common man.
Okay, no,
so I think it is understandable if you're quizzed, you have to provide the answers. The ministers can't have a gag order because this is not the BCCI.
Okay, Sanjay, I want to bring in Siddharth Bhatia over here. Siddharth, if I were a cynic, I would say that Narendra Modi has very craftily used the media when he required it in the run-up to the elections. Every media, not just the news media, he used hologram technology to spread his message. He was on radio, he was on the newspapers, he was on massive campaigns, the media were invited and they were welcome. Now that the role of the media has served a particular purpose, he just wants to forget about that and move on with his agenda, which is governance. One accepts that clearly. But the media has served its purpose. Let's just put the media on the back burner. If I were a cynic, that's what I would believe.
No, I don't think there is any cynicism involved in it, and I'm not totally on board with your explanation or your thesis, Vishnu, because yes, as a campaigner, he did use the media, and in fact the media went along quite happily with it. They were very, very sharp in their media strategy, but you have to understand that there are two things involved here. There is the government and there is the party. The Pinky Anand sitting here is speaking for the party. She cannot speak for the government. As far as the ministers are concerned, they have been told not to speak out of turn, get on with the job of governance, fine as far as that is concerned. But when there is silence, for example, the 2 or 3 examples that you gave on Nihal Chand, there is absolute silence. There was absolute silence on several other things. So when there is silence from the government, then doubts start increasing. The Prime Minister does not have to tweet on everything, of course not. He doesn't even have to hold a press conference on everything. But when he sends a message to his ministers to say, barring 3 or 4 people, not everyone will speak. And then you see inexperienced people like Harshvardhan saying something, have to retract. Smriti Irani saying in public, I'm not supposed to be talking about this. Then you start wondering whether he is clamping down and telling them, look, you're not authorized to speak because you're not capable. And as far as the party is concerned, he is telling them, get on with the job and go to the constituency. That's absolutely fine. Totally understandable. So I think unless the government does not have a political voice, he does not have a man in the PMO, it does not have a spokesman yet. So if this continues for a long time, the misunderstanding gap with the public will only grow. So silence can serve up to a point, but they have to get their communication strategy in the government in place as fast as possible.
Siddharth, let me ask you this, as an editor yourself, would you say that this could actually transform the way in which, for example, television news debates take place? If senior ministers aren't speaking, if we aren't getting something substantive to debate on primetime television, then do you think we could actually be back in that wonderful scenario where we were about 15 years ago, where anchors presented the news and reporters reported the news, and at the end of the day people were given information, and with all due respect, Pinky and Sanjay Jha wouldn't be on the show?
Well, I think
I wouldn't be on your show either.
Pinky's problem.
You wouldn't be on the show either. That's right.
That's a decision that editorial yeah. But the thing is, Vishnu, that's a decision that TV channels will take internally. I would partially go with that in the sense that these chat shows only end up kind of sometimes, not always. There's a lot of hot air being generated and there's speculation and all that. But don't forget, the job of a government is also to, I'll give you a small example. The Prime Minister said a little while ago that you will have to swallow a bitter pill. Now that's a very significant statement. It wasn't made on a TV channel, it was a very significant statement. The country immediately understood tough economic measures are coming. One came, it had to be backtracked. That backtrack had to be explained. Whether it's on the TV channels or whether it's in newspapers or whether it's a spokesman or whether it's a minister, in fact, that has to be done, because we have now reached the stage in our country, in the world, where communication is a 24/7 job. So, it will really lead to rise to all kinds of speculation, rumor mongering, second guessing and all that. So silence is not golden necessarily when you're running a government.
Pinky, last word to you.
Vishnu,
Do we actually?
I think
go ahead.
we are going too far on we are going too far on this subject of Mr. Modi saying to everybody to be silent. I don't think he's asking them to take actually a quiet backseat and to sit there. The idea is ultimately to devote more energies in the action of doing, and that of governance, and that of government, and that of statesmen, whatever Sanjay Jha may say about differentiating between all of these. And rather than saying that, he's not saying that everybody should not even approach as far as the media is concerned. I don't think there's any hands-off attitude vis-a-vis the media. So please, Vishnu, let's not translate that into a medium of 15 years back. I think everybody is pretty much here to answer all the questions. And as Siddharth quite rightly said, ultimately the point is the questions must be answered. The people must come to know if they have a query. But I'm afraid this speculation which has been going rampant, it has come to a point of time where we must be asking some questions as to whether that kind of speculation should go on, or you must have a responsible statement from a responsible person, from a person who knows about the subject, to come on any of the media channels and to represent the position.
All right. We expect perhaps more debate being generated with Parliament.
Can I ask? Can I
say
something?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Vishnu, can I say something quickly?
Yes.
Can I say something quickly? Yeah. No. The irony here is that the Prime Minister of India till about 3 months ago was pilloried and criticized for being quiet man and being Manmohan Singh. So I think that thing may come back to bite if it is not remedied soon.
All right, well, we'll see where this goes, and perhaps the Prime Minister will be more flexible, perhaps he'll speak more. People are accustomed to him speaking, and ministers as well. I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us this evening.